Hello, my name is Kyle Scallon. I'm a senior, University of Houston in the Interior Architecture program. I chose David LaChapelle as my artist for the artist visualization presentation. David was born in Fairfield, Connecticut, 1963 in March. By the age of 15, he had grown pretty unhappy with his life. I suppose as many kids do, but he actually ran away to New York City and began working as a busboy at Studio 54. So it would have been around 1978, just before the 80s, in Studio 54 in New York City. So you can imagine that era, Broadway and just a different culture. With the adult film shows, and it was really before the plays and everything hit Broadway and changed the culture of New York City. It was very, very gritty. His dad ended up taking him from New York City and enrolled him in the North Carolina School of Art, where he stayed and he graduated, and eventually got the attention of Andy Warhol, the soup can, the Campbell soup can artist, the pop artist. If I can scroll down here, sorry. To quote the New York Times, LaChapelle is certain to influence the work of a new generation. And his work exemplifies that. Going to the North Carolina Art School, they taught him in many different mediums, and he picked up just a visual language that permeated his artistic style, whether he was making music videos for Mariah Carey in the Loverboy remix in 2001, or Elton John, All That I'm Allowed in 2004, or Tears Dry on Their Own with Amy Winehouse in 2007. And these are just three, and just one of the many he did with Elton John and Mariah Carey. So, artists that range all across the spectrum. He gets into series work. So From Heaven to Hell is one of his final books in a series that stretched from around 94 or 95 and finished up with From Heaven to Hell. And basically it's a mockery, in my sense, of religion and established religion in this day and age. And in my opinion, his interpretation of the world's interpretation of religion and pop culture in everyday life. So The Last Supper. Every time I look at one of these photos, I see more. There's just so much to it. There's so much thought and detail placed into each one of these images. He didn't just need a guy with at the far left with the golf cap. He didn't just need a guy with no shirt. He needed a guy with character and body art. The Jesus figure in the center. He needed a certain look for that. Where the flowers are placed, the roses in back, and what's on the right is a sense of a Madonna. So that corresponds with. So it's just a very interesting, different levels and layers that you'll see. Dave LaChapelle is a famous pop photographer, movie maker, and video artist that made his name by shooting celebrities like Lady Gaga, Kanye West, and Michael Jackson. Whether his music videos or still photography, he's worked with quite a few names. So this is in the American Jesus line, hold me, carry me boldly. Just the stark contradiction. Okay, his style, David's style, is that of pop art, and here we have the king of pop being portrayed as dead, his white glove missing, laying on the ground, and they're in the middle of nature. So it's a contradiction of Michael's existence being the pop king, in my opinion, which is not natural. It's not of the natural world. You know, it's a direct contradiction to the forest around him, and Jesus looking up, seemingly confused as to what to do. And he's asking to be carried boldly, and he's leaving his worldly possessions behind. The Venus of Willendorf. So again, we have this contradiction with nature and in the human condition, and just the grotesque nature that can be found in the Western world, or in the quote civilized world. You know, nature is this beautiful green, doesn't need much, and then you have this unnatural condition of the human, you know, covered with, you know, they can't see. It's very evocative with the shoes, you know, with their attempt at vanity. So, in my opinion, it's a grotesque attempt at vanity. Despite recognizing the self-conscious nature, you know, just being, you know, overweight and in that sort of sense. So this is his series Revelations in 2020. It's one of his latest ones. And again, here, you know, we have the provocative sense, this juxtaposition of beauty and glamour and not beautiful or anything glamorous. You know, fire, wreckage, you know, pain, anguish, and she seems to be emerging from that, you know, with an hourglass. There's just so much to be taken from that. There's so many layers, and one's interpretation of this could change with their mood, and what kind of mood they're in that day. And throughout his work, you'll see that, in my opinion, that you'll see the meaning can directly reflect, you know, whatever you're thinking or your mood of the day. You know, here we have what looks like an abandoned strip center. It's called Revelations Road, and it seems to be people at their wits' end. A strip center at the end of its life. Doesn't seem to be any depictions of religion or a Jesus figure in there, but it's sort of the end of consumerism, if you will, and the older couple is enjoying the last minutes. You got a couple people praying. Calamity and chaos is happening. So it's just a different interpretation of Revelations, the book of Revelations, as interpreted in the modern world, and what we might be doing. The Fair Nun of Iona. So here we see, I guess you'd say, an angel figure. It looks like a Madonna, surrounded by these prayer candles, and seems to be a vigil to an angel, but not your biblical sense, you know. Very sacrilegious and in its tones. Again, Revelations Road. You know, there's a saying that the revolution will not be televised, but it will. And this is, consumerism, the street vendor selling food, the cops trying to keep order, people praying. Again, it just gives you an idea of a hyper reduced situation in what we might see in David's interpretation of the end of the world. And here we have Icarus, David. It's a single work. It's not a series like we just saw. Excuse me. Icarus being the Greek legend of Icarus flying too close to the sun, of wings made of wax, and he gets too close to the sun and falls because of his wings melting. And Icarus, modern day Icarus, very fashionable with his green boots and his white pants, falls back to this technological wasteland that he tried to escape. Again, just very, very provocative. Very provocative. So my critique, again, I keep saying it, provocative subjects. This picture here is the frog protecting the flower, and it just turns it turns the head on itself, because we know that frogs, like to hang by flowers and catch the flies or the bugs that go by them. And David puts the sense of the bugs are going to harm the flower, and so he's just doing his duty. And it makes a point to our intentions versus reality. If we're the frog and we're doing our thing because of what we think is right, is it really? So that seems to be the whole tone of his work and what I've seen. He takes what we see or what we interpret and just flips it on its head, and it makes you realize it may not be about that. It being detailed. I said at the beginning, I can look at these photos and see something new, or some of these photos and see something new every time, because they're just so layered, or take something different away, or notice how one person is leaning this way, or just the position of everything, the color tone, just everything, the mood. It's very, very interesting. Culturally topical. Again, I'll go back to the technological wasteland and modern fashionable Icarus dead, laying there, from old computers, new computers, to the Mac there, the portable Mac quote that weighed 20 pounds. So it's culturally topical in the sense that anybody in this day and age should be able to look at these and understand what he's saying. It's not something from the 1920s where he's trying to encapsulate a feeling from 100 years ago and evoke a sense of emotion in the viewer now. At the beginning, I said he seems to be interpreting reality and placing it in his art. But nowadays, what is it? Is life imitating art, or is it the contrary? Because his work seems to be, hybridization of certain real-world issues in nature, and the juxtaposition of nature versus the man-made or the technological. And it seems to have shown up in his work, but is his work showing up in reality? Here we have a homeless person in Beverly Hills, and I've been to this park, and there's $1 million homes within 100 feet of her, and she's sitting there reading with nowhere to go. So it's not really the David LaChapelle style, but it's an example of the provocative juxtaposition of want versus luxury, and want existing in the world of luxury, or vanity existing regardless of want, and that's a theme that seems to be recurring in some of his works. And that's where I'm going to leave it. I thank you for your time. I think David is a great artist. I looked at some of his video works, and I think I'm going to have to look at a little bit more. So once again, thank you for your time.